Hey friends, welcome to Benchmarking in the Cloud. My name is Will, and this is a giant nerd rabbit hole that I am super excited to pull you down into. We are going to hang out for another few minutes as folks start to trickle in, but get psyched. And this will give me a chance to juggle the 10,000 tabs that I'm dealing with. Hit me with a comment on how many tabs you have open right now. Hey, Adam. Welcome back. Welcome. We have got network latency. We have got open source projects. We have got Kalimba. We have Adam. We have Melon Squad. And actually, this should be a really chill workshop. So I am really pumped about that. I am not going to make you do too much strenuous coding. It's just gonna be a fun chat, and we're gonna talk about how to build good things and how to not build awful things, which is something that I've always been very passionate about. Hey, Pulkit. Let me know if I mispronounce your name. I will try to get it right. Adam, I guess that goes for you as well. Everybody, actually, why don't you jump into the chat and introduce yourself? I want a comment in the chat introducing yourself, and also I want to know how many tabs you currently have open, and I will start counting mine. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Hi, my name is Will, and I have 17 tabs open. Whoever has the most tabs gets a shout out. So right now, I guess actually if you break the record, right now, Adam gets a shout out because he has 40 tabs. If you could break the tab record. There's also nothing stopping you from just opening more tabs right now, except for your sanity, right? Okay, Adam has broken his own record at 47. All right, Pulkit, how many tabs do you have? Yeah, if you count mobile, I guess I have like 10,000 tabs open and on my phone. So I'm gonna say we won't count mobile. Unless you're on, if you're tuning in on a mobile device, then you can count your mobile tabs. How about that? Okay, also, last time I did one of these, I told everyone we were going to play some Kalimba later, but I didn't actually show anybody what the Kalimba was, and so I feel like it wasn't a very good motivator. So this is my Kalimba, and it's very soothing. So after we've talked about tech for a while, we'll be able to listen to some soothing music. Music like that. Isn't that nice? Isn't that sweet? Oh yes. Okay, Adam. I will send you a photo for Melon Gang, for Melon Squad. Excuse me. Apologies for calling it Melon Gang. I will send you a photo for Melon Squad. It might actually be perfect segue to jump into some slides. Boom. Every time I share slides over StreamYard, it's like grandma discovers the internet again. So I'm just gonna ask everyone to bear with me here. Let's see. Oh no, where did my slides go? No. All right, everyone hang tight. Also, reminder, comment with an intro and how many tabs you currently have. Ooh, okay. In addition to sending how many tabs you have, here's another poll question. I am curious how much everybody knows about benchmarking. If you have never heard the word benchmark before, I want you to put a 0 in the chat and hit send. If you have heard the word benchmark and maybe have some vague idea of what benchmarking is, then put a 1. And if you have ever like run a benchmark, then give me a 2 in the chat. This would be like helpful to kind of gauge, are we dealing with seasoned pros or are we kind of starting from scratch here? I assume that most folks will be pretty new to this. It's a pretty niche nerdy thing, but if I'm wrong, then I would love to know. Okay, sweet. Now I can share my screen. Share screen. Boom. Boom. Benchmarking, everything. All right, let's see. We've got a 0. We've got, let's see. We know it's 6:34 a.m. in India. Gosh dang. Wait, okay, what part of India are you from right now? Adam is a 2. Adam has run a benchmark. Good for you, man. Oh, Delhi. Okay, that's cool. I actually, a while ago, I lived in Delhi for, 3 months, 2 months. I interned there for a bit while I was in college, and I really enjoyed it. So that's fun. Hello from Delhi, or hello to Delhi, I guess. Let's see, Mr. Semtex. I'm gonna say that's how it's pronounced. You didn't miss anything. We're just kicking off. We're starting 5 minutes late because I figured people would probably show up about 5 minutes late. So welcome. We are talking about benchmarking in the cloud and at home and benchmarking everything. We are going to walk through pretty gently, kind of a gentle intro to benchmarking, and we're going to look at some tools we can use to benchmark things, specifically latency. Yes, I am blonde. Look at it. All right. So, introductions. I haven't introduced myself yet. I now add intro slides because if I don't, I will just totally forget to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Will. I am a coach at Major League Hacking, and I actually work full-time as a software engineer at Google. I work on Google Cloud, and I actually work on the cloud benchmarking team. So 3 guesses as to why I'm so excited to talk to you about benchmarking. One fun fact about me is that I'm a Python enthusiast. I am a Python enthusiast. And I love benchmarking things. It's a lot of fun. My name is Will. Yes, my name is Will. What kind of question is that? It says it right there. You know this. Okay, so we're gonna just kind of zoom out away from benchmarking and just talking about like why we measure things. We build like in tech generally, we build stuff, right? And like you could just, you write a program, you can just run it and see that it works, right? You just look at it kind of by inspection. Why would we want to measure things like how fast it runs or how expensive it is to run? Does anybody have any thoughts? This doesn't have to be interactive, but I'm gonna throw it out there in case anybody wants to jump in. I'm looking at Adam and Electric Hamstar or anybody else. Boom. Okay. One really good reason. This is why do we measure things? Oh my goodness, y'all. I need to be sharing my screen. Okay, yes. This is one excellent answer from Mr. Semtex is you can identify areas that you can improve on. This is like a really good thing. And this is exactly what I was thinking. This is my first point. Is that you might make different changes and you might have the goal to like make it better. But if you don't measure how it was doing before, and then you don't measure kind of what it does after, then you have no clue if you actually made anything better, right? And so you could both identify those places where you need to improve, and you can also kind of work on improving them and see if it happened, right? Something that we do at Google a lot is people talk about development at Google, like software engineering at Google is very experiment driven. So you want to implement some change in your code. Maybe you want to like put your server behind a load balancer. And something you might do is you might test that change and run both the current setup and the change you want to make, and see which one runs faster, right? You might like simulate some traffic on your website and see which one delivers responses to your website faster, right? And then what this does is once you run this experiment, you have data that if anybody asks you, hey, why did you make this change? You can just point to the data and say, hey, I ran this experiment and this is just better. And so we're going with this way. Another big reason that we might want to measure things is to see what our strengths are compared to others. In tech, as we said, we're usually building things. And when we build things, we want people to use them. But you usually in tech also have competitors, which means all your users will be asking this question, why should I use your service over, service XY? If you measure a bunch of aspects of your product and then compare it with your competitors, you can come up with a good answer to that question. For example, maybe your service is a bit more expensive, but it's a lot faster and more reliable than your competitors, right? If you measure that, then you can go to users and you can confidently say, you should choose our product if speed and reliability are important to you. Oh no, Polkit, I'm so sorry that you were leaving. But good luck on your exams, and I hope it goes well for you. I'll be channeling positive vibes, and thank you for tuning in. And I hope you come back and watch it afterwards. So comparing kind of ourselves to others is actually another good reason to benchmark things that we build. And then finally, a third reason to benchmark stuff is to actually help us pick between options. When you are building a product in the first place, you are going to have a lot of decisions to make. If you've ever been to a hackathon, you probably know that there are always like a half dozen companies that always want you to use their new database in your app. And that's like just the beginning. You have to pick a language, you have to pick a framework, you have to pick a cloud compute provider, a storage provider, a domain registrar. And like this list is eternal, right? This list could go on forever. Sometimes a choice that you make isn't actually that important. For example, with domain names, most domain registrars are pretty similar. Maybe one is a bit more convenient, or another one has a nicer UI, or one of them is free. Yes, that's like an excellent reason to pick one. But most registrars will charge you about the same amount for a domain. And once you have the domain registered, like it's registered, right? You have it. But for other choices, like which cloud provider to use to host your server, this decision can be really important. Something to throw out is that sometimes as students, we do have free credits to things, in which case we will just use the thing that is free. But this is kind of gauged more at the idea that you actually have like kind of a production app or something more serious that you actually are now paying for a server, and you want to make sure you're getting the most for your money. So picking a cloud provider, say, is like a great example of a decision that could cost you a lot of money or make development take longer or hurt your app's reliability or performance or all these things we care about. So you might want to measure all your choices before you pick one. What's up? Emoji is a boji? Emoji is a boji? I'm going to guess that's how your username is pronounced, but correct me if I'm wrong. Welcome to Cloud Benchmarking. Discord link. Will someone please share the Discord link with our friend? Because I don't have it handy. Ooh, okay. Okay. Cool. Now we're going to jump into a conversation about latency. Does anybody know what latency is? Drop it in the chat. I know people know what the word latency means, right? This one's not rocket surgery. Like it is what you think it is. Adam knows. Adam, what is latency? Anybody? Yes, Mr. Semtex, killing it. Yes, a time delay. Latency is just like a delay in time. If you make a request, any kind of request, latency is the amount of time it takes for you to get a response. Right now, I am actually talking to you and you can hear me, but you're not hearing me at the exact same time that I'm speaking. There's a little bit of time delay, and that delay is latency. That's not a crazy idea, right? It might already be obvious, but we care about latency because it makes the user experience worse, right? If I could record this and then you saw it like 30 minutes later, we wouldn't call that a live stream, right? We're comfortable calling it a live stream because the latency is like relatively low. You're hearing this pretty quickly. But any amount of latency we add makes the user experience worse, right? 10 seconds, think about 10 seconds. It might not seem like a lot of time, but if Google took 10 seconds to give me a search result, like I would start using Bing, right? That's like a really aggressive statement that 10 seconds would cause me to use Bing, but it's the truth. If I had to wait 10 seconds every time I wanted to make a Google search. So how do we measure latency? There are a couple good answers to this. One is if you have ever kind of written a function like in Python, you can, before you call that function, literally just store the current time, and then you can run your function, and then you kind of store the time after that function returns, right? And then you can just kind of find the difference between those times, and you can say, okay, it took that long to run, right? For the most part, we will not be thinking about kind of doing this on our own computer. We'll be talking about the amount of latency it takes for one computer to talk to another one. So this is like when you request a web page, how long does it take for that server that's serving the web page to just say, hey, yeah, I exist, I'm sending you the web page. So does anybody know a good tool we can use to measure network latency like that? Anybody? One excellent tool is called ping. Has anyone heard of the ping command line utility? Oh, okay, someone mentioned Postman. Postman is actually another great tool. Postman is, for those of you who don't know, it's a, well, it does lots of things. But if you have an app that has lots of different endpoints, Postman is like a great way for both testing and benchmarking those endpoints. But an even simpler kind of tool to measure latency is called ping. If you have never, or if you've ever heard someone say like ping me, usually that means like in that context, like send me a text or send me a message on Slack or something. But to my knowledge, kind of where that term comes from is from the ping command line program, or the ping command line tool. So we're actually going to jump into kind of a live, what's the word? Live demo here of ping. So you see the syntax here is just you use the word ping and then a space, then the domain name that you would like to ping, and then you can do -c, which stands for count, and you can say the number of times you want to ping it. This works on kind of Unix-based operating systems. So if you have a Mac or a Linux machine or Ubuntu or something like that, this should work for you. I believe it works on Windows as well, but I would depend on my Windows friends in the audience. I think actually it works on Windows, but instead of -c, you have to do -n for like number. So I am going to drop that command in the chat. And you can fire up your trusty terminal. Boom. Oh. Let's see. Boom, trusty terminal. And I will make that a little bit bigger for y'all. And we can just say ping google.com -c10. And it is now making a bunch of requests to google.com. A ping request is kind of a special kind of request, but you can see over here under time, you can see all of the amounts of time it took us to get a response. And this is actually really interesting. So usually when we talk about computers and networking, we usually talk on the order of magnitude of milliseconds. That is a thousandth of a second, right? Or 1 second divided by 1,000. And you can see that for most of our requests, it took us like about a little like 5 or a little bit under 5 milliseconds to get there, right? 4.8, 5.7. We also have this one where we got 29 milliseconds. So that is a little bit higher, right? normally people have thrown out this idea that the human brain is usually not well equipped to pick up on differences that are less than 100 milliseconds. I think it's called the 100 millisecond rule. So usually if we have if you can get to a server in under 100 milliseconds, like that's probably fine, right? So this is google.com. One thing that we know is Google is really ubiquitous, right? Google is all over the world. There are Google servers lots of places. But one thing that's an interesting counterpoint is let's think. Okay, so vk.com is a website kind of, I understand to be a social media service that is originally based out of Russia. And so I would expect that they have a lot of servers in Russia and maybe not as many servers outside of Russia. So that would be an interesting point of comparison to say ping vk.com and then also say do it 10 times. And suddenly we actually are seeing a much different story, right? Above here we saw our average was 7 milliseconds. And here we see our average is 158 milliseconds, right? That is a long enough network latency that you might actually notice it when you load a web page. I want to pause for a second. Does anybody have any questions about network latency? We just kind of, from our own computers, just tried to check out how long it took us to ping different websites. And we saw Google was pretty fast. vk.com was considerably slower. Does anybody have another domain name that they would like to ping? What's another interesting one? Maybe oh yeah, absolutely. Let's ping melon.blahagang.lol. Let's see. All right. Ping melon. I'm going to misspell this. blahagang.lol. And let's say 10. Oh, -c 10. We should look at that. Impeccable. We're getting really, really low latencies. Okay, someone else asked if we can do this. Is a specific IP address, which a little bit concerns me. I don't want to dox anybody, but let's try 192.168.0. Oh wait, is this is this a local thing, or is this? Uh-oh, we're getting some issues. We're getting timeouts, which means that whatever that was, they do not want to give us a return ping. One thing that is good to note is that a server has to, in the same way that a server has to set up a in the same way that a server has to set up a web server, so if you request an HTML page, it will return it. They also have to decide to set up a ping server, right? And a lot of times this is kind of enabled by default. I think a lot of operating systems just do that automatically, but it's not guaranteed. People could specifically disable that either through a firewall or through other means. But yeah, so that IP address did not ping. In general, requesting an IP address actually can work, although it needs to be one that is kind of actually hosting an operating system that will respond to it, I guess is the answer there. Let's see. And we could see this, let's see. What is the IP address of google.com? And I mean, google.com will have lots of IP addresses, but we should be able to find one. Okay, this is their default DNS servers. I wonder if that supports ping. Oh. Okay, yeah. So that was an IP address we got a really timely response from. Pretty quick as well. So yeah, you could do any domain name that will be able to be resolved by the DNS protocol or any IP address. But I'm not going to spend all day kind of putting IP addresses in here. We've got other things to get to. But yeah, ping is a really, really nice, helpful tool. And it gives you these nice little stats here. So back to some slides. Boom. Boom. Presenter view. Oh. Okay, yeah. So this is just, let's see, can I full screen? This is just the kind of the output from when I pinged Google earlier. This is a ping to vk.com. And this is the results from a ping to vk.com. So a point that I want to get back to is that it's literally because VK's servers are further away from me. It actually takes more more network latency or a longer time for that network transaction to happen, right? It is because Google's servers have a really direct path to me and like literally close to me in the internet. That they're able to respond so quickly, right? I mean, there are some other things here. Like obviously, if your computer is really slow, it won't be able to respond quickly. But the ping protocol is really, really quick. So even small computers should be able to respond to that really, really fast. And so usually what it comes down to is the network either being congested. If you have a network congestion, we call it weather on the internet. But it also is how far away things are. So now that we're talking about kind of geographical locations, let's talk about Google Cloud. I do work on Google Cloud, and so it is like the example case that I have ready. So we're going to talk about it. Google Cloud has a bunch of individual data centers. If you have ever created a virtual machine or done anything on any cloud surface, you probably have been given this choice to pick what data center you want it to be in, right? They usually have names like US Central 1 or like Asia North 16 or whatever. But they actually represent like actual data centers that have servers there, right? I think it's something that sometimes is lost on people, that when we say the cloud, all we're talking about is like other people's computers. And I mean, there's more than that. There are great reasons why we think cloud computing is a good idea, but all of the computers exist somewhere, right? So if you pick US Central 1 on Google Cloud, you'll be in Iowa. And so say we know that we're launching an app and we have a lot of users in the US, right? US Central 1 is like maybe a decent option because it's kind of in the middle of the US, in the center, if you will. And so it's going to be pretty close to everyone, right? We would expect in general to be close enough to our users that they would see pretty low latency when they try to interact with our site, right? But let's say we've got lots of friends in Delhi, lots of friends in Mumbai as well, and we start getting a user base for our app in India. This is a super common thing that happens, is like there's something that either starts in the US or starts somewhere else, and then like some other place it becomes really popular. And actually, I think the US and India are like, it often happens that those are the two countries, right? And so this data center in Iowa may be really close to all of our users in the US, but it's really far away from all of our users in India. And so we might actually want to put another server in another data center, right? So we might just spin up another server there. And that's like a pretty good solution, right? Now we have these things that are all pretty close to our users, right? Most users are pretty close to one of our servers. But there's one more thing we have to consider. We want to put our servers near our users, so there's low latency between our users and our servers. This makes sense. But because we now have multiple servers, we have to care about the latency between our servers, right? This suddenly becomes a pretty difficult task. Imagining, especially if you have multiple servers in different locations, this actually gets complex pretty quickly, and it is not super feasible to constantly be kind of logging into different VMs around the world and running ping commands, right? So that is where PKB comes in. PKB, or PerfKit Benchmarker, is this open source tool, this open source benchmarking tool that people use to measure and compare different cloud offerings. It is a community effort involving like over 500 participants, including researchers and academics and companies, together with Google, who is the originator of this open source tool. The big thing that PKB does is it just reduces the complexity of running the same benchmark in a bunch of different places. So today we're just going to be looking at Google Cloud just because it's easy. I don't want you to have to handle like 13 different logins. But the real power here is that if you are trying to decide between different clouds, you can actually use this open source tool and benchmark all of them on the things that you care about and get good results, right? So I'm going to drop the little GitHub link here. Or this is kind of the home page. And this is the actual GitHub. All right, bye, Adam. I will see you again when you get on your mobile. So that was kind of our homepage, and then that next one was our Git repo. So before we get too much further and kind of dive into PKB, I'm gonna shout out that we should all try to get on Google Cloud. If you have been to hackathons before, you probably already have a Google Cloud login and have free Google Cloud credits. But if you have not, then I would totally recommend you do it. You can go to cloud.google.com/free, which I will throw in the chat there. Boom. And this will give you different options. It'll show you all the different free ways you can use Google Cloud. You can get free credits, and there's also a free tier. And so you should be able to do all this without really spending any money. You will need to have an enabled billing account, but you should be able to do everything we're going to do with free credits. Also, if you were like, Will, that sounds stressful, I'm not trying to sign up for Google Cloud just this minute, then no worries. You can totally follow along, and it should be a good time. No pressure. You can still kind of get something out of it. But if you already have a Google Cloud account or you are down to sign up for one, now is a great time to do so. And if you have any questions about following that cloud/free link and setting up an account, throw a question in the chat and I will help you out. Sweet. The one other link that I will throw out there is this tutorial that we're going to be roughly following. I'm trying to make this very, very easy. And so we will actually be skipping some of the steps here. So we're not following this tutorial exactly, but we'll mostly be following along with it. Yeah, Adam says that I promised a kitchen tour for this stream, and that is true. So after we do some benchmarking, if anybody wants a tour of my kitchen, I will my kitchen that is like 36 square feet. I will show you around, and I think I may have even promised that I would make an espresso live. So if you want that, if that's the thing that you want, then I will give it to you. But I'm not telling you that you should want that. All righty. At this point, do we have any questions? Is everybody feeling good? Is everyone feeling lit? Adam, I have not seen your espresso stories on Insta, but now I'm going to start looking for them because I love espresso. I love nerding out about it. All righty. If we don't have any other questions, we will kind of charge right ahead. Boom. So we just looked at running ping locally, right? On our laptop, we were able to run ping and get some latency information at some domain somewhere else. But we don't want to have to do that for every single potential pair set of different places we might put a server. And this is what PKB does. It does lots of different benchmarks, but one of the ones it can do is a ping benchmark where it literally is just getting every pair of zones that you want to check and is running ping between them and kind of reporting back what it finds. So if you have been able to get into Google Cloud at this point, we are going to be using the Cloud Shell. And actually, I think also at this point, I am going to start live coding. If people are cool with that, y'all can kind of follow along. Let's see. Yeah, we're going to do some live coding. Once you get to the Cloud Console, it should look like this. You're going to want to use the Cloud Shell, which is a super convenient way to sort of run commands in the cloud to interact with things. And you will just click that. It's just like the shell on your own computer, but it's on the cloud and it has a lot of useful tooling already installed. So that is what we will use. And it's totally free, which is nice. So we will get out of here and boom. Oh, wait, nope, that's the wrong one. Boom. Okay, so this is my Cloud Console. I'll make it a little bit bigger. And Boom. We will fire up the Cloud shell. And I mentioned this earlier, but if you have any questions at any point, throw them in the chat, and we will get to them. This is the point where, like, if you are still following along, like, y'all are my people. I love y'all, and I will do what it takes to help you out. If you are kind of actually following along here. If you're not, no worries. You can kind of just kind of hang out with us, and that is great. Let's see. Adam asked, like every day, if you're asking, you post espresso stories every day. Have I seen them? I have not. I don't really. I honestly, I don't watch stories that much. Like I post a lot of stories. I usually don't watch that many. But if I know there's something cool, such as espresso, I will take a look. Alrighty. So we are roughly following along to this tutorial here, the reproducing inter-region tests with PerfKit benchmarker. This is what we will be using, but only roughly. And so if you follow along with me, I will kind of tell you all the commands you need to run and kind of help you figure it out. So for starters, actually, before we jump too deep, I wanted to throw out our game plan. So I will pop this up one more time. Boom. So the first thing we're going to do is install PerfKit Benchmarker. It is an open source tool, so we can just clone it from GitHub and use it. Then we're going to create a BigQuery data set for our benchmark that we run to store its results in. Then we're actually going to start a benchmark for latency, which we'll just use ping. And then we're actually going to skip this step of starting a benchmark for throughput because we're talking about latency today. It's latency Friday. And then finally, we're going to look at our results in BigQuery. That is kind of our roadmap, and we will go through and kind of tick them off. So for starters, we're going to install PerfKit Benchmarker. One thing you're going to want to start with actually is running gcloud auth list. And you can click authorize, and it will just make sure that you are authenticated. You should be. It shouldn't be a thing that you have to deal with, but there. And I'm going to clear that so nobody sees my email for too long, because apparently that's a security risk. But you should see something like your email and your account, and it should say active. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to run the gcloud config list project command. And this is just going to make sure that our gcloud utility in here actually knows what project we're on. So you may have kind of the default project, which is fine, but you may also have already created a project and be using that. And if you are doing that, that is just great. Also, if there are words that I'm saying like project, and you're like, wait, what's a project? We haven't even talked about that. I am happy to walk through that. I think lots of folks may actually kind of already have some experience here, and if you don't, you should just have a default project set up when you log into Google Cloud for the first time. But if any of that is something that you want to hear more about, we can walk through some more usability on Google Cloud. It is something that I genuinely think Google Cloud does really well, is that it is pretty streamlined and pretty easy to get the hang of. I will not call out any other cloud providers, but I have used other clouds. Some of them are really user friendly, but some of them it's like I'm looking for a virtual machine or something, and I start searching, and I get this pop up with 13,000 different offerings, and it just is this waterfall, and I'm not prepared to process it, and it stresses me out. And I would say that for me, Google Cloud is actually pretty user friendly. So I'm really down to walk through kind of those different user paths. So if you are getting this output and you have a project with a name, then we're good. If you don't have anything coming out, then you can use this command that gcloud config set project, and then you put your project ID. So your project ID is right up here, and mine is pkb-demo. Yes, Adam, I do work at Google, and yes, I happen to think that Google Cloud is like a pretty decent cloud. I don't know what you want me to say. Like, I'm not unbiased here. Alrighty. So if this didn't say pkb demo, and that's the project I was using, then I would just run this command. And I will throw that command into the chat. Sweet. And you should see this output, updated property core/project. There is one more kind of in the weeds thing we have to do, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But OS login is enabled by default on this project. OS login is great. I'm not going to talk about it. PKB actually uses SSH keys to authenticate for different VMs. And so we actually have to disable this kind of newer thing that is OS login. And so this command will just disable OS login because it is a little bit easy or a little bit harder to kind of muck around with. And we love mucking with things. That's what we do. All right, so we did a little bit of setup work. If there's any questions about that, pipe up in the chat and we can take a look. Otherwise, we will charge right ahead with setting up our environment and installing PKB. So PKB uses Python. As I said earlier, I love Python, and I'm really lucky to work on a project that ends up using some Python. So we're going to set up a Python environment. The first thing we're going to do is install the Python 3 virtual environment package. Cool. So we get this notification that because we're running inside of Cloud Shell, we can't expect this stuff to live forever. Cloud Shell is kind of meant for like little one-off tasks. It's not like a development machine for you. But that's fine. We're just going to use it for kind of the day. So we install that. I will drop that command in there. And then we're going to set up and I actually have to remove it because I already did this because I've done this before. But I'm gonna remove that. But so you don't have to remove it. But then we are going to set up a virtual environment. If you are not familiar with Python virtual environments, first of all, I would recommend that you get familiar with them. But the long and the short of it is that there are lots of Python packages and there are different versions of all those packages, right? And some versions of some packages only work with particular versions of other packages, right? So you might have like a machine learning library that you want to use of one version, but then your web server library is like a different version. And you just want to make sure that you have the right versions of all of these things and they don't conflict. If you have multiple projects on one computer, then you might install the wrong version of a certain package. And what a virtual environment allows us to do is say, hey, we're only working on this one project right now. And so we're only going to install in this virtual environment the packages that we need for this project. So it's a nice way of keeping things clean. I don't always use virtual environments, but I often do, and I always should, because it's like a little bit of work now that ends up making your life a lot easier. So that command created a virtual environment for us, this Python 3-m, then v, and then we told it where we wanted it to make that virtual environment. And now we can issue this command that sources something inside that directory that got set up, and this will actually activate our virtual environment. And so you can actually see that my prompt changed, and now I am in my virtual environment. So now any Python commands that I run will be operating with kind of this environment for Python. One way we can make sure we're using the right Python is by creating a little alias here. So this just aliases when we say Cloud SDK Python. What we're really saying is the Python that is inside our virtual environment. And all these commands that I'm throwing, these should be the commands that just kind of word for word you can copy and paste, and they should just work. But if they don't, let me know, and we can walk through it. Alrighty. Now, the final thing that or not final thing, but in order to actually install PKB, we are going to git clone. So we are on right now. Like I am actually the GitHub link that I sent you is actually the GitHub repo of this whole project, and so we can use this command. Oh yeah, I have to remove that as well because I already installed it. But we can use this command. We're going to change directory to home, and we're going to clone this Git repository. So git clone just makes a copy of it and gives it to us locally. So I'll post that command in the chat, and we can hit return. And it is now downloading all of PKB. Sweet. And now we can just change directory into perf-git benchmarker. I know at this point, commands are flying left and right, and we're moving pretty fast. So I will take another break to ask, does anybody have any questions? Just to kind of zoom out and reorient ourselves. We're benchmarking things, right? We're measuring how fast it takes for a message to get from one server to another server, or even broadly from like one place to another place. And when we just care about like our laptop and one domain name, right? Like my laptop and, Netflix.com. That's pretty easy. But when we want to look at like, okay, we have one server here and we want to know of all the other places we could put a server, which place is the best, that suddenly becomes a bigger problem. And so that's kind of the problem that perf-git benchmarker is set up to solve. And so we can use this tool to do that kind of at scale. And it kind of automates a lot of things for us that we'll see in a second. So without further ado, now that we're in perf-git benchmarker, the sort of last install thing we're going to have to do is install all of the dependencies. So we're going to use pip. Pip is the Python package manager. And the first thing we're going to do is update pip. Looks like pip is updated. And then we're going to use it to install all of the requirements. One great thing about Python is it has a really, really convenient way of telling people what dependencies you need to run this project. You put it in a requirements.txt if you're not familiar with this. So we actually have a requirements.txt. We can just say more requirements.txt, and we can see under here this is all of the packages we need to install. We keep going down, but we don't have to install them manually because if we just use the command pip install -r requirements.txt, it will do all of that for us automatically. Adam, you're saying I pronounce Blahaj wrong. How is it pronounced? Could you type out a phonetic pronunciation for me? In case anybody is unfamiliar, I'm sure that we'll look at this later. But Blahaj is Blahaj, I don't know. Is a beautiful little shark toy that you can get at IKEA for, in the US, $17.99. I know that some people, among them myself, Adam, and Jacqueline Biggin, really love Blahaj because it's cute. That's all I have to say on that. I have been saying the word Blahaj multiple times, and so I didn't want to leave anybody in the dark. Okay. Congrats, you have officially installed PKB. We are going to move on to our second big task in our game plan, which is creating a BigQuery data set to store our results in. So now we are looking at, boom, creating a BigQuery data set. After that, we will actually run our benchmark for latency, and then we will actually look at our results. And I will reiterate, if we have any questions, now would be a great time to ask. Let's see. Adam says, blah like black, blah like black, Hajj like the Islamic pilgrimage Hajj. Well, now I got to check up how to pronounce Hajj. Let's see. How to pronounce Hajj. I don't know if y'all can hear my computer audio.
Hajj.
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 Blahaj. 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 Is that correct? Am I pronouncing Blahaj? Blahaj? Or is it Blahaj? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the support. Okay, BigQuery. We're not going to go too deep into BigQuery. This is not a deep dive into BigQuery. It's just something we're going to use to store some data and then look at it later. So we won't look too deeply into this. We could talk about BigQuery later, but for the time being, I will just share some commands. So this BQ make PKB results just creates a data set for us called PKB results. Well, let's see. Oh, now we've got some drama in the chat. Mr. Semtex says, according to Google, it's more like Blahai. And Adam says it is not Blahai. Well, if Jack is around, it would be really great to have your help so we can resolve this dispute. All right. Well, yes, Adam. I mean, like in a lot of Nordic languages, a J makes a y sound, right? Like the fjord. Okay. I'm going to try to move forward for a second so we can get to some benchmarking, but we can litigate pronunciation of the shark name afterwards because we were so close. Okay. For me, it says that it already exists because I already created it, but you should get some output that says it was successfully created. Let's see. Did I share that command? Yes. BQ MK PKB results. We'll just create a new data set for you. So now we are actually doing swimmingly. We're speeding along. Y'all are killing it. And we are going to actually get to run our benchmark now. This is actually the moment where we diverge from the tutorial. The tutorial has you running a version of this benchmark that basically runs this test between every pair of zones in Google Cloud, or every pair of regions in Google Cloud. And there are a lot. And if anybody understands power sets, that means that there are even more pairs, right? This is, if you output this is all of the zones. And we're going to look at every pair between them. That is a lot. Luckily, there is a version of this config that gets you just two. Here we have US Central 1A and US East 1B. And these are relatively close. So we would expect relatively good results, if you will. And so what we can do, and I will first pop that command to see inside the config. We could dive more into the syntax of this config if you want. And you could write your own configs to kind of run your own tests like this. But largely, it just tells you kind of what parameters we want to run this benchmark with. So now we can actually write our PKB command. So we are just going to invoke pkb.py. It's literally just a Python file you can run. We are then going to tell it which benchmarks to run. In this case, we just want ping. Literally, the name of the benchmark is ping. It's that easy. Then we're going to pass it a path to a config file, which is what we just looked at above. And that is our path there. And then we are going to also pass in information for that BigQuery table we just created, so it knows where to store the data set, or to store the results. Boom. And once we hit return, we will be off to the races. I'm also going to copy this command and share it in the chat. You should be able to just copy this and paste it and get off to the races. Like so. Now you're going to see a lot of output. These kinds of tests are like pretty big endeavors. And in this case, we're only looking at 2 zones, so it's not as big of a deal. But you might be looking at, every pair of regions in the world. And that becomes a big ordeal. And that's something that, some of these benchmarks are things that you kind of send off to run. and you wait kind of half a day, and you come back after lunch and you have your results. Because this is, this is kind of pretty serious sort of reconnaissance if you are building something. And so we can see a lot of the commands that it's running. Okay, Adam says that that Filipino says it best, but Mr. Semtex points out that it is a Swedish word. I am again going to attempt to abstain from the conversation about shark name pronunciation. Although I do naturally actually have a moment to kill some time while this benchmark runs. This again should be relatively fast. I think a few minutes will be all it takes. In fact, actually, in that time, I think I'm going to pull this away, and we are going to jump back into a few edifying slides. Boom. Presenter view. Boom. Boom. So we have now just crossed off starting a benchmark test for latency. So we're going to look through just a couple of the common flags that you will pass to PKB, because if this is something that you'd like to use, it would tickle me pink if you picked it up, and I'd love you to have kind of a running start at being able to use it to benchmark whatever you want to benchmark. So for starters, we have the cloud flag. This is kind of actually one of the reasons that PKB is great, is that you can run on a different cloud simply by just passing a different cloud flag, right? Instead of having to develop a whole different system to benchmark Azure versus AWS versus GCP, you could just literally change the cloud flag from GCP to AWS. And that's pretty great. So that is how you would change the cloud. Let's see, we have a project flag. This is the project to run your tests in. So like in GCP, you have this idea of a project that is like the location for resources, right? If you have a virtual machine, it exists inside a project. In the GCP Cloud Shell, PKB is actually able to figure out what the project is automatically. But in a lot of cases, if you're running this from your local machine, you would have to explicitly tell it. Zone. This is what we were kind of looking at earlier, is that on that map of all those data centers, every cloud is spread across like physical space, right? This is like really good because it gives you sort of lower latencies if you put your servers near people that you care about. But it also is good for resilience, right? If something terrible, if there was a terrible earthquake that happened in Ohio, and all your servers were in Ohio, like there's a chance your service might go down. But if you have servers in Ohio and in Brazil and in New Zealand and in Singapore and in Frankfurt, I know I mixed and matched a bunch of like cities and countries and states there. But if you have a broad geographical distribution, then there's almost like no single natural event could actually bring down your service. So it's a really nice thing. And this just tells you what kinds of zones you want to be running in. Machine type is another super helpful flag. Different clouds have different kinds of virtual machines that are good at different tasks, right? So like I am super familiar with Google's offerings, but like Google has an N2 standard 2, and that is like general purpose. But a C2 standard 2 is optimized for compute tasks, right? So like if you have an N2 standard 2, that the dash 2 at the very end is just how many cores you get. So you can have an N2 standard 4, and it's just like an N2 standard 2, but it has 4 cores, right? But all these are different types of machines. When you spin up a virtual machine, you pick one of these types, and it tells you kind of what relative benefits you're going to have. So that's a helpful flag. That is kind of the overview there, and we can now hop out of slides and see if maybe our test is ready. Boom. It might still be running. Let's see. So we can actually see it has now run ping a bunch of times, which is really cool. We can see that roughly we're getting sort of like 30-ish milliseconds, which if you think about it, we earlier looked at VK, and I think the average was like 150 milliseconds. So this is better, right? Like our ability to talk between these two data centers, the latency is lower than it would be if just I was trying to talk to VK's servers. Let's see. Adam says, "What about world being hit by a meteor?" Yeah, so if you have like a world-ending event, and oh, if you have a world-ending event, I think the case that I would make is that your servers probably will not function anymore. But also, if all of your users are dead, you actually don't need any servers, right? So that's kind of the case that I would make. That if there is still a world left to care about, that if you have lots of different geographically distinct servers, then you should be in good shape. But I mean, it's a fair question. I think it's actually really interesting to think about sort of correlated failures, right? Like, I mean, there are lots of different angles you could take, but like, for example, what if you saw a bunch of flooding, right? Like, what if in general something were to happen and the climate of the Earth were to change such that the sea levels rose? Like, I don't know, just as an example, and you had a lot of flooding all over the Earth, right? A lot of data centers are like built to withstand different kinds of catastrophes, right? So like many data centers like probably would be okay with some amount of flooding. But you can imagine that if you saw a lot of flooding all across the world, right? If you saw 40 days and 40 nights of rain, not to get biblical, but if you saw that, then like there actually is a chance that would cause a lot of different parts of the internet to go down, perhaps. I mean, in general, like we have waterproofed lots of things, but you can imagine certain kinds of failures being correlated. All right, our test is still running. I remember last time it felt like it wasn't taking that long. I mean, there will be a little bit of variance just in terms of how long it takes to set things up. But in general, it's going to mostly depend on how long the task you're trying to do is. And in this case, we're just running ping a bunch of times. So this is going to be one of those faster tests. Let's see. Adam says global warming. Yes, that is what I was referring to be clear. Let's see. You could submit a picture for the Melon Squad website while we wait. Okay, yeah. How about that? While we're waiting, what if we just pulled up? What if we just pulled up my Instagram and we picked out a profile picture for me? Everyone go follow me on Insta. W Liffert. As Adam knows, you will get pictures of flowers and coffee occasionally. Let's see. That one's too edgy. That one has other people in it. Oh, that's from when I gave a TED Talk. Y'all go check out my TED Talk. Okay, this has just become the shameless self-promo hour. Follow me on Instagram. Go watch my TED Talk. Oh, but then we're getting far back enough. I'm realizing I don't post on Instagram that much, so it's like in the second that I have like some decent headshots, it's like that was a long time ago. Oh, this one is actually fun. This one's fun to talk about. I can't click in without signing in. This was I did a like a deep style where I took two photos and gave them to an artificial neural network and had them kind of redo one photo in the style of another. And so I used a photo of me, obviously, and then I used a picture of Lumpy Space from Adventure Time. And so this is me done up as Lumpy Space. So maybe that is the one that we would want. Maybe that's unless anybody has any other votes. Let's see, Mr. Semtex. You can try to. I am not often that active on Discord. I know it's probably to Adam and Jack's chagrin. Oh yeah, if you're talking to me, then I would say actually the best way to talk to me is one, talk to me live after this workshop. Two, actually, you can add me on LinkedIn. That is like where usually I try to say hey to people who have watched live streams or workshops. But you can also message me on Discord. I just I know I have like 1,000 messages on Discord that I haven't responded to yet, so I don't want to send you to a black hole. All right, so we can actually see that our benchmark here is winding down because it is deleting resources. We can see G-Cloud compute instance delete. And so it should not take too much longer for this to get wrapped up. But while we're waiting, I can answer questions. I actually would open the floor to questions about benchmarking, questions about what I do at Google or Google in general, questions about like technical interviewing, questions about hydroponic farming, questions about espresso. Um, all of those are valid question topics. I also could just serenade us with some kalimba and or ukulele music. These are open options. Oh, except none of them are good options because we just finished our test. Boom. Yes, Adam, the one that looks painted and wavy. That is the one. All right, so we are back on Google Cloud, and our test has finished. You can see that it succeeded. We love that. We love it when our tests succeed. And we see we have a log here. We have some completion stuff. Great. We love it. All of this is awesome. But we want to see what kind of data we got out of there. So we will now be moving on to that final segment, which is messing around with it in BigQuery. And this is going to be a short section. There's lots you can do with BigQuery. As I said, it is a really, really adept sort of data warehousing solution. But we're able to just issue very simple SQL-like queries to it. And so the one SQL-like query that we will want to run, I guess you could say it technically is SQL because SQL is just a structured query language, and it is structured, and you issue queries with it. And so we are just going to request from the table that we just wrote to, and it's going to look like that. And I will share that command with everybody else. Boom. Excellent. Look at that. We've got some data. So this is showing us a bunch of different data from different things. We can see all of this is the same test, and then we have different metrics, right? If you remember earlier when we were running, let's see, when we were running ping, it gave us at the bottom these summary statistics. That's basically what we're getting out here, only it's aggregated across different tests. So between our two zones, which was US Central 1A and I believe US East 1B, between those two, we can look at let's see, maybe we want to see sort of average latency here, right? And we have our average latency is always clocking in around 32 seconds. We can also see something that's actually really helpful, which is seeing our max latency. Right now, I'm actually working on a big project where we're looking at tail end latencies, right? Because we're not interested in what we could assume that on average it does pretty well. But what is the worst case scenario? And our max latency tells us that. So in this scenario, these two, one of our max latencies is like 34 milliseconds. Sorry, I may have said seconds earlier. I meant milliseconds. These are all in milliseconds. And this is actually pretty good, right? Something we said earlier is that human minds, it's often said as kind of a heuristic rule of thumb that anything above 100 milliseconds or anything below 100 milliseconds, it's really hard for us to pick up. And so that's usually if you can get something done in under 100 milliseconds, usually that's pretty good. So I would say that if we wanted to build some workload that was going to be sending data between these and we wanted low latency, that these two zones would do okay at getting that kind of with low latency. Depending on what you're doing, if you need super, super low latency, you're looking for sub-millisecond latency, then you'd probably want to do something where you're actually putting all of your servers in a single zone, right, in a single data center. But this gives us kind of a rough picture of if we were going to pick these two data centers, how long would it take to get data in between them? To kind of circle back around and kind of zoom out a little bit, because that kind of is our benchmarking there. Here, let me give myself a nice little backdrop. To zoom out a little bit, we're talking about why we measure things at all, right? There are lots of great reasons that people threw out, right? We want to see if we can get better at something. We can see if a change we make actually helps. We can figure out what we need to improve. We can kind of see what our relative strengths are relative to our competitors, right? We can see maybe we're more expensive, but we're faster and more reliable. And then it also helps us make decisions, right? And we zoomed in on that, like when we have options to pick from, like different service providers or different zones to put stuff in. We want to make sure that it suits our needs, right? And one of those big things when we're picking like a geographic area is picking an area that's going to be fast to get to, right? We said that a few milliseconds might not feel like a lot, but that if you were doing that hundreds of millions of times, then those milliseconds add up. So we looked at this tool, PerfGet Benchmarker, a tool that is very dear to my heart. And we played around with it. I will actually say, if you actually did follow along and you actually were able to use PKB, I would love to talk to you. I would love to chat. Like if you did follow along and actually got that all to run, please message me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to chat. Both to kind of get feedback on what you thought of the tutorial, and also see if there was anything difficult, and in general, just to say, hey. So that is the conclusion of kind of the core technical benchmarking stuff that we're going to do tonight. That hopefully wasn't too painful. It was pretty quick, and so I will stick around for a few minutes just to chat. If anybody has any questions, this actually would be the time that we can look at pronunciation of what now I think I'm going to pronounce Blahai. Blahai. But I guess I would say thank you all so much for being here. It was a lot of fun to nerd out with y'all. Benchmarking is a thing that is very near and dear to my heart, and so it is always fun to share those things that you care about with people who care about them, or with people who humor you. So thank you so much. Y'all did amazing. Excellent questions, excellent engagement. I guess I will turn it over. If anybody has any questions, we can chat about shark pronunciation, and then at the end, I will play you out on Kalimba. All right, we've got some comments about pronunciation. Someone say it's actually blue high. Blue high sounds maybe not right. Let's see. Basma Sir says, how can we use benchmarking in our own hackathon projects? If you're not working on large-scale projects. This is a great question. And I touched on this maybe very briefly at the beginning. And I would say that if you are like at a hackathon and you have like free credits for something, in general, I would say if you're at a hackathon, use the thing you have free credits for, right? Like that's like a really good thing to do. And so in terms of that last, making decisions between two things, probably when you're a student, when you're at a hackathon, the decision is just going to be what's the cheapest, right? What's the freest, really? When it comes to how you can use benchmarking in general in your projects, I think it is actually once or twice I have seen projects where people have done a little bit of testing in terms of like performance and latency on their project, right? So if you build if you build like a simple website and you host it online, but then you ran ping against it, like literally you just ran ping at different times of the day, saying you said, this is how fast it gets to, how fast it takes to kind of download this website. Ping wouldn't work in that case. You'd actually want to be downloading the HTML, something like curl or something. But if you did that and actually included it as like an understanding, you built this thing and you actually kind of tested it. I judge hackathons all the time, and I'm biased because I love benchmarking, but I would think that's super cool, right? I think that it shows that you not only were able to kind of put something together really quickly, but that you're also considering like how it will perform. I think the other thing that I'll say is that like generally you only care about benchmarking once you are working on something a little bit longer, right? Like I have projects that I've done in one weekend, and then after that weekend was over, I didn't care about them anymore, and like I never benchmarked those. Like I never did any benchmarking to make decisions for it, and I also never benchmarked the thing. So it's not a requirement that you have to benchmark every single thing that you build, but it can be kind of interesting to see, simply even just saying, how fast is my server if I request this web page that I put up 100 times on average? How long does it take to download it? So that is one answer in terms of how you can actually use benchmarking at a hackathon. Let's see. Kalimba, Blahai, Espresso Kitchen Tour. The second Google Translate link. Oh yeah, okay. Someone did post it. Let's see. Is it not going to let me actually copy it? Y'all. Huh. StreamYard is interesting. I can show it to you. But it's just Google Translate. I could pull up Google Translate. Let's see. I want to put in. I want to translate from, I don't know, Swedish. To English. So it looks like from Swedish to English, it is just the same. Oh, but we can listen to it. Let's see. Blahai. That sounds like Blahai. Blahaj. Blahai. If we're going by Swedish Google Translate, Blahai. Blahai. Oh, right. It has the little circle. Is it above the first A? Also, what is that circle called? Oh, and now it's suggesting that I translate it from Danish. Okay, yeah. There we go. And so it's blue shark. That makes sense. Oh, goodness. Blue high. Y'all, this is big. This is big news. Blue high. Huh. Huh. All right. Well, I think for me that's definitive. I think I'm going to start pronouncing blue high, which also makes sense that it translates to blue shark. Like, come on. All right. I think we're now. Now I will say, formally, workshop is over. Y'all did amazing. Feel free to stick around. I guess I am probably going to be doing a tour of my kitchen that is kind of dirty right now, but I will be able to zoom in because of my fancy new lens. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in unwired headphones so I can move around. Okay. Although I guess actually y'all can't talk to me, so the headphones don't actually help. I don't know. All right, let's turn on some lights. There's not like much of a tour besides just like this room is kind of messy. But let's see, can we zoom in? Oh, that's not even that much zoom. Okay. Well, you can see back there, I have Connie and Flo. Connie is my conical burr grinder. Flo is my espresso machine. Flo and Connie are dating. I know, typical. If you look to the right, you see a sink and a microwave. That is where I make. Oh yeah, good call. Boom, y'all. I need to get better at live streaming. Connie and Flo. Actually, to the left of Connie and Flo, you have my knife collection, including that big Japanese steel knife. Her name is Betty. On the counter there, you can see my scales because I use brewing by weight, because how else could I brew espresso except by weight, right? And I also have actually, this is kind of fun. We'll do a little show and tell because that's what we're about here. Here's my weight distribution tool, where you can put it into your portafilter and rotate it to evenly distribute your espresso grounds. Boom. I also just recently got this naked portafilter, so you can see the espresso as it comes out, which is really nice. It's easier for tell. It's both pretty and it's easier to tell kind of how your espresso brewing is going. And that puts me at currently owning 2 portafilters. And I'm not sure what like a sensible number of portafilters to own is, but I feel like it's less than 2. Okay, so scrolling to the right, you can see my beautiful sink that was clogged until just a few days ago. So that's a big win that it's unclogged. The disposal was broken, and yeah, then you can see my my microwave and my oven and my stove. The microwave is where I make frozen Trader Joe's meals. Trader Joe's. That is where I make frozen Trader Joe's meals. And the stove and the oven are where I make other food that is better. I've been making a lot of macarons. Those are really tasty. Maybe I could live stream making those sometime. And then if you go even a little bit further to the right, you have my beautiful ukulele named Rachel. And if you go even more to the right, you can actually see my other monitor that has what I'm currently sharing on it. Let's see what else we got. I mean, I have this table. Actually, this is big pro tip. I like often get compliments on my table. People like it. It's like good in pictures. It's from like a restaurant supply store. It was like $100. So like in terms of like how much tables usually cost, like not an expensive table, but it looks very much like I'm like in a test kitchen or something. So pro tip: get yourself a prep table. Now I'm getting all this love to live stream making macarons, and I think that would be a really fun thing. Maybe I don't know. Maybe a live stream isn't the best format. Maybe I should just do a lot of Insta stories. We'll see. We'll see. That is kind of the kitchen tour. That's basically what I've got. Do we have any other? It's funny. Once I stopped talking about benchmarking and I started talking about my kitchen, like more people joined. Which is great. Let's see. Please do. Me die 6 day 6. You say we need the magic. What is the magic that you need? Oh yeah, I am also supposed to show everyone melon.blue .lol. Oh, true. Yes, maybe a live stream would be fun. And actually, like the camera is set up such that like it actually would kind of work, right? Like you kind of can see all the interesting things from here. All right, here we go. So this is a case where I actually don't know. I don't know as much as I should. I vaguely understand that MLH guilds are a thing. That it is like a way to kind of learn as part of a community, and get involved with all these great MLH events, kind of as a team and kind of earn points with your team. And like I'm a fan of that. I personally have never participated in one, mostly because I'm always coaching and I'm not usually participating. But I was invited to Melon Squad, which is is it a subdivision of Blaha gang, Bluhai gang? I don't know, but I understand that these things are related. The Melon Squad and Blahai gang are they touch, right? I guess we can read about it. Oh, there's no about page, but this is a very fun website. Good recommendation. I will fill down time with stories, Kalimba. That sounds like a good time. I would attend my own party. Let's see the squad. We got Adam, of course. We got this individual whose name I don't even know how to pronounce anymore. Hi, Richard.
Keys.
Keys. Oh yes, my dearest, darlingest boyfriend Richard wants the keys.
Thank
you. Of course, we have Jacqueline, who is my grandchild in MLH terms. Let's see, Stephen, of course, Ryan, yes, Ayush, Midhat, love that, Surya, excellent, Jenna Everard. Is Jenna a coach? I guess she is. I don't know her. Hey, that's me. Ah. Oh, hey, Jamie. We got one of the best people in the world in Plahigang Friends. Need we say more? Jamie is great. Jamie was one of the first people that I ever did like a paired hackathon with, and we had a great time. It was a blast. We did pen apps together. Oh my goodness, yeah, y'all! I'm so bad at forgetting when I have screen shared or not, y'all. I need to step up my game, or maybe I just need to make this StreamYard picture bigger, so it's obvious what y'all are seeing. But yes, here we have the Melon Squad, and there I am. That is me. Time to make history by winning local hack day share together. Love it. Art. Excellent. Cute. And an invitation. I dig it. So everyone, join Melon Squad. This is your official plug. If you were looking for a sign, consider this to be it. I'm going to zoom out a little bit because my whole face is not even in the shot. Whoa. All right, fam. Y'all are troopers. It's been real. It's been fun. If we don't have any other questions, I will reiterate, if you actually used PKB, message me on LinkedIn. I would love to chat. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here, and I will play y'all out on Kalimba. Oh, I couldn't forget the Kalimba. All right, let's see. Maybe we just want to widen it even more. All right, friends. Thank you so much for being here. It was a blast. Can't think of a better way to spend a Friday night than with y'all. Peace and love, and happy Friday.